Right. Hi, this is another episode of the Critical Introverts show. Today we have a new member, a man by the name of Derric Wise. You want to, I guess, introduce yourself for this episode?
Yeah. So my name's Derric Wise. I am a designer and illustrator based out of Seattle, Washington. I come from a very rural area in middle Washington State, and I now live in the heart of socialist communist society of Seattle. Yeah, that's me.
And Derek's here to join us with a discussion overall on just college in general, because I do think a lot of what's going on kind of stems, not totally, but a large part of it does stem from just college culture. And it's something that's I've been noticing within the last maybe 5 years or so. Maybe it's been longer, but I don't know. I guess who else? I mean, and anybody wants to, I guess, start the discussion, I guess.
Yeah. So college, for me, so I come from a farming background, and going into the design industry. So farming industry, especially back in the 90s and 2000s, typically was more of a, Republican, you'll see a lot more country flags and hillbillies out here. This is kind of what, this is what it looked like out there.
Mm-hmm.
And, so being, a commercial farmer, especially a small commercial farmer in the 90s, you see the government becoming much more intrusive and limiting the things you can do, making it a lot harder to be a farm. La Raza was a big thing, and you started getting the label. This is way back in like the 90s. Label, if you're a white farmer, you're labeled as a racist, just the fact that you have a farm and people work for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it was crazy because we lived with the folks that worked with us, and it was very more multicultural than you can imagine. And so like my school was out there on the farm, and you learn a lot more with the people that you work with, speaking Spanish and learning about cultures and working together than you do at a school or in a metropolitan city like Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you learn it, right?
Yeah.
So being called racist or somebody that doesn't like Hispanic people was a big shock to me. I can think of that first seeing that at maybe 8 years old. And that kind of laid the brickwork of the way I think today, and especially with the government making it so hard to be just a small farmer. We're just trying to get stuff out to these big conglomerates. They're selling our produce to the international market, and these big, grocery chains. Like the way you do it on the farming, if you're doing apples, you pick all your stuff, you get a contract with a warehouse, and at the end of the year, they give you the check depending on what, so you don't know if you made any money till the end of the year. And then that's taxed, and then the government taxes you on that stuff, and then give you your not only income tax, the property tax, a tax on the people that work for you. And then if you get caught having illegal there, if they lied to you, and you can get you lose your shirt on that kind of stuff. So it just seemed like at every turn the government's trying to get you out of business so they can buy your property. They ended up getting our property, but that kind of laid the brickwork of the way I think now. It's a small business, free market, anti-big conglomerates, big government, anti-Monsanto type, mindset.
Yeah.
So yeah, and when it comes to schooling, and you get these messages and stuff like that of who who you reflect from the media and school and teachers, at least in our communities. Like I was 30 miles or 30 minutes away from our nearest school, and the people that were teaching school are so far pulled away from the farming industry, even though it's pretty close. And the way they would talk about you is basically what I said before, that stereotype that you're trying, exploiting people, and all these things that you hear today about, the polarization, the extremist, you're this if you do that, if you're this skin color, you're this type of stuff. So being inoculated to that kind of mindset at an early age kind of set me up for I am the honorary bastard I am today.
Yeah. I think right now there's like a real push of like just pushing activism on people right now, and a lot of that, I think, just generally does stem from the college culture. And, I went to college like around 2015 to 2017, 18, around there,
Mhm.
right around the time when this stuff was, I guess, peeking out through the mainstream. And I kind of went in college sort of open-minded, like thinking like, I'm pretty sure it's a little overblown, but whatever. And yeah, when I went there, it wasn't like Berkeley bad, but I went to like a little unheard of school in California, and it was pretty pretty shocking, some of the stuff that I witnessed and some of the stuff I saw.
Yeah.
And yeah, and even like some of the, I don't know what you call it, like the lingo and the political beliefs that's kind of popular now, that was stuff that I witnessed back in college, and I knew it was nonsense then, and I just know it's just nonsense now. So
Yeah.
it's something.
Well,
But
that's interesting. Like going into school, I think most of my friends and stuff, especially my conservative friends in the design industry that I went to school with, they were, I think your default is liberal, and it's easier. Here, let me rephrase that. I think what happens, and the reason things are so extreme, is no one wants to be that redheaded stepchild that goes against the grain, and especially
mhm,
if you're throwing those heavy weighted terms like racist, bigoted, homophobe, all those things are designed to keep you quiet, and no one wants, no, I don't think, no, in this country no one really wants to be
a bad guy kind of thing.
they don't want to be the bad guy, right? They want to be the white hat, right? So they
Mhm,
they use those terms as a cudgel to misuse empathy to push you in a certain direction because it's easier. And most people don't want to fight upstream and figure this stuff out, especially as a young kid, especially going into college. So you
mhm,
go in open-minded, you have expert bias, where these are the professionals, they're college professors, they got to know their stuff. I'm just a dumb kid coming out of high school, you know, teach me. So you go into the stuff, and the faster you realize that you're probably smarter than your professors or the teachers, the better off you'll be, and the more you'll think critically. And because I think, in a way, and we talked about this before off screen, about the being inoculated with the right mindset, understanding that these experts aren't necessarily experts, or they're only experts in being a professor, not necessarily what they're talking about,
mhm,
and being able to challenge that. That's where the real schooling comes in, and that's where I was battling from grade school all the way through college. I bounced around
mhm,
from a few different colleges, and a lot of teachers are good. The ones that you couldn't figure out what their political spectrum was, they're probably usually the best. The ones that
mhm,
are the most obvious in their political spectrum, I think, are just lazy, and it's just easier to teach with that cudgel, because you don't have to have that intellectual challenge, and you don't have to actually know what you're talking about, because you can always just end the conversation using those cudgels,
mhm,
especially with kids that are coming out green and thinking, these guys know what they're talking about. But the truth of the truth of the matter is, you can be a jackass and be at the top of the country and run the whole entire country. And we've seen a lot of jackasses as president. We've seen a lot of jackasses as mayors. And if you've ever met a politician and really talked to him, you get the idea, like, oh, you're just good at being a politician. You're just good at being in front of a camera or in front of, like, whatever it is.
yeah.
Uh, and I think that's where I think, you can go through school and not really notice it if you're not paying attention. But as soon as your eyes are opened, and as soon as you have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, because like when I was going into grade school, I think where my big chip on my shoulder happened is being dyslexic and being shoved into a broom closet with a guy that was shitting his pants and couldn't speak, and they just flip a TV on and they just leave the room, and you're in there
Mhm,
for like the whole day. They go, and your friends are making fun of you because you were in the special class, just because the teachers were shitty at like teaching, and they couldn't teach the kid that was hard to teach how
mhm,
to spell, so they put him in a broom closet.
oh,
And as soon as I figured out this teacher is just a shitty teacher and she's sticking me in this room, I'm pretty fucking smart, I can figure this stuff out. And when I start asking questions, they're flummoxed, like, what,
mhm,
why is that, like, what's going on there? And I really had to kind of come to terms with, okay, I'm just not good at spelling very, I misspell shit, fuck, kill
yeah.
me. Like, but I'm retarded. Like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah,
That's what it is.
the problem is that we do see these teachers as experts, so we look up to them. So especially as kids, because one of my earliest experiences was in grade school, but I can remember the one in high school even more, because in high school I used to have a world history teacher, and I didn't know what she was doing. She just seemed like really nice. I didn't know she was actually trying to indoctrinate us, because she taught world history, so she kind of went over history. But looking back in retrospect, I can tell that she was uh, making the whole communism, Marxism, like she was like polishing it in a nice lens. So we'd be more accepting to it. But I never understood it, because even as a kid, just thinking about it critically, I mean, well, communism never really worked. And she even talked about it. She even admitted it. So why is she in a way suggesting it? So I'm like, I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
And
Did you guys, I mean, I don't know if you guys witnessed in college, but for me, every time the subject of communism came up with the teacher, they always defended it. Like they never like deterred people from like,
yeah,
that's just a bad
it was
idea.
always kind of like gray, kind of like, okay, well, yeah, that happened, but it wasn't like
Yeah.
really that bad. Communism, like, so
It's
like
misunderstood kind of
it's
shit.
misunderstood. They tried to like massage it and make it like romance it, make it look very appealing. And oh, like it's the freedom fighters. They're
Yeah.
just trying to like work for the man. And but yeah, anyways, with this teacher, like in world history, it got to a point where she eventually organized a field trip with all my friends. And the only reason I went was because I wanted to go on a field trip. And then it was in San Francisco too, because I'm from California. And it's funny, like looking back, I'm like, damn, they were really trying to get me. But it was to San Francisco, and it was one of those workers' marches, one of those Marxist marches.
Right.
And I just wanted to go because I had never been to San Francisco. And at that point, I'm like, why am I even here? When I was like marching, and I was like, what am I doing here? It's like,
That's so
because
interesting.
I'm trusting the teacher, thinking, well, I guess this is okay. Because at that point, I still was just like unsure. I was just like, well, I'm just kind of like curious, and I wanted to like look into it. It's like, I guess this is like a good thing, and I wanted to like find out for myself. But even after that, like I found out. I mean, that's like not the way to go. I mean, that's I was being indoctrinated. But after that, I started getting like the newspaper for the I forget what it's called, like the Workers' Party newspaper. And even though I never showed interest after that, I kept getting that newspaper like for years. And I think finally, like they stopped sending it to me. But I think a lot of these professors are from the counterculture revolution. They're like all the hippies that they sort of like, I don't know if they're aware that what they're doing is wrong. I think they feel empowered and righteous to do what they do.
Did you guys ever hear about that whole like Frankfurt School thing?
Yeah.
Do you guys know much about it? I only know just very little about it, but I think it does kind of it does have roots in college, American colleges. So, like, do you guys know more about that? Or
oh man, it rings a bell. And I think I know what you're talking about, but I would need guidance there.
Yeah, I would have to like go and read my book. I've read about it before, but I'm not good at bringing up like names but yeah, it's like the infiltration. I think they were Germans that came from Germany. And it was after World War II, and they came and they infiltrated the the universities.
Yeah.
And, that's all I can really say, because I can't remember the dates and all the other details.
And I know it's focused in on California too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know the Bauhaus.
I heard about that too. I'm not. Yeah.
I mean, I think you're right, dude. Like it's they absolutely believe in it, but just like a religious group of people, they believe what they're saying, and they know what they're doing at the same time. Just like a Mormon goes out and propagates and tries to push the word and convert people. I think it's very similar, and it's so ironic too because they're so anti-religious, and they would hate these religious people going to their house and asking them, hey, have you heard the good word? And they do the exact same thing to their kids, but the difference is they have them by the testes because they're paying for it as well, because they have them, they have them at school. Their parents are paying for all this money, and they're forced to be with them as opposed to walking up to them and having the guts to actually knock on the door and try to convert them that way. So it's a interesting situation they have built for themselves. And
Yeah, because
I think
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a combination of knowing what they're doing and believing in it.
Yeah, because I know people that are like pretty deep into the beliefs or whatever in the indoctrination, and even before like I looked more into like this Marxism and postmodern stuff, they always gave off like weird, creepy, like they were in occult vibes, like some of them were people that I kind of grew up with, and it just felt like I wasn't really talking to them anymore. It felt like I was talking to like a shell of a person that was like just wanting to like spread their gospel to you or something like that. It was
I think what it is that humans tend to indulge in tribalism. Like if you look at, I'm like, I think competitive sports is good. But I think if it gets to a point where, like with politics, where okay, this is what I believe, and I'm right, you're wrong, and it's just like this sort of dogma that we're never all going to be the same. Like, there's no right way. We're always going to be. It's not that we're divided, but we're always going to think differently. So instead of trying to like get somebody else to think the way that you think, we just have to respect each other for what it is that we believe. But it's like the left right now has gotten to a point like, oh, well, you either think like us. If not, we're gonna like, I don't know, like we're gonna you're gonna go to prison. We're gonna do this, or we're gonna take away your you can't work because you're not getting vaccinated. It's just they're trampling over individual rights.
Well,
and go
hot
ahead, Derric.
take. This is a hot take. I think liberalism has died. It's died in like 2008. I don't think there's a liberal. I mean, liberals, you can talk to a liberal, you can talk to a Democrat. That's not what these people are. They're, like communist socialist Pravda type folks. I mean, they 1 second they hate big pharma until the very second that it's beneficial for them to cudgel you with a vaccine, or they can create vaccine passports. The fact that the goalposts move so quickly with these guys, and they use these things with a cudgel. It's more Pravda. It's not an intellectual belief that I challenge with myself and challenge with someone that disagrees with me. I mean, disagreement and difference of opinion is what makes us interesting. It's how we evolve as a society. And if that's dead, then
that's why that's why like entertainment is like suffering so much, is because they're only trying to portray the one side when it's not that boring. It's actually there's a dynamics between liberalism and conservatism and like different types of people. There has to be that interaction. Otherwise, it's like that's not real life.
Well, it's like movies nowadays, like new movies coming out. Man, you can go like back 3 or 4 years. Lots of really great movies are coming out. It's interesting, edgy. There's interesting concepts. And then all of a sudden, woke culture starts really ramping up, mid Trump era. And Hollywood is like watching shitty Christian films that are like low budget, and like the concepts are so forced. It's not interesting. It's like, oh wow, the action hero is a woman. Oh great, awesome. Oh, the acting is suffering because if they said something wrong, they would get banned. And like, there's nothing interesting coming out. It's just gray sludge of everyone has to be the same, and it's not colorful.
And that goes so like against like when I was younger, like what a liberal kind of meant. It meant like just celebrating differences and stuff like that. But now it's weird. Like you look at the SJWs, like they have the green hair and all that shit. Like they're trying to be different, but in a way they're all the same in a weird way.
Well, it's kind of also kind of like patronizing for people of color. Like I'm a person of color, And like when they're imposing somebody of color, somebody that's Black, somebody that's Hispanic on characters that are historically white, or it just is patronizing. Why do you have to do that? That's like more racist than like what you're actually trying to accomplish. For example, and this is to the one person, I'm addressing the one person like in the first video that we made. He said something, all great, all conservatives.
Oh
What
yeah,
do
I
you
saw
say?
that.
All conservatives don't like Black people in movies. It's not
Yeah.
that, because anything that you can do one way, you can do the other way. Like say, for example, like if they made a movie on Martin Luther King, right?
Yeah.
And you try to impose like a white guy. So instead of Martin Luther King being played by
It's
a
like
Black
Tom
guy,
Hanks or
you have
something.
Conan O'Brien or Tom Hanks. It's like it's the same thing. It's not gonna work. It's just
Yeah.
I kind of hope that does end up being the future. Like they get obsessed with racial stuff that like there's like Malcolm X movies, but versions with like a Mexican guy's playing
yeah.
them, a woman's playing them.
Well, yeah,
You
they're
know,
instigators. All they're trying to do is create. They're instigating to create resentment between the people, the real people, not these wannabe grassroots um, movements that are funded by these NGOs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all fake. Like we don't
What?
care about that.
Well, like look at ads today. Just turn on like if you ever watch ads, because it's I don't. My
Yeah, I don't
parents
either.
only had like network TV, and you go on the ads. It's like, oh wow, Black dad, Hispanic wife, Asian kid on the boys in a wheelchair. And it's like every single
Yeah,
every
it's like
single
they're going through
family
a
is
checklist,
exactly
and
the
it's
same.
so obvious. It's
And
so
so like if you're
obvious.
doing a movie in like East LA or something like that, I'm sorry, that family is probably not going to exist exactly. It's going to be a Hispanic family, or like
Yeah.
you go down to Wapato in my area, it's going to be all Hispanic. You're going to go to Seattle, it's going to be real white with, it's just like.
Have you guys noticed? I've seen like a weird trend where what was it? I think in American Horror Story there was a season. I think it was like the hotel season or something, and they go over Angela Bassett's like her story arc of back in the day, and her family, they're Black. They live in Compton or like a Black neighborhood, and they just happen to get like a breaking and entering happens, but
Oh
it just
yeah.
so happens that like the criminals are all white guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been noticing
Apparently,
that. It's
don't look at the
hilarious.
stats. Just whatever
Yeah.
you do, stats are racist. It's because, and that goes to the policing thing and the way they teach stats in school, right?
I think the left
This is,
has no idea how stats work.
oh, they do. You can manipulate them, and like
Hmm.
this, it comes from. There's a book that if you ever look at the Microsoft guy,
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates, whenever he's doing a public talk, he always has books in the background. One of the
Mhm.
books he likes to show off is how to manipulate stats.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I remember
wow.
seeing that.
No, it's in almost every single thing, and it's something. It's like when you get into the startup industry, they tell you to write this book or read this book,
Mhm.
and you can make stats say whatever the hell you want.
Mm.
It's easy, but when they're so stark, and so like the crime rate stuff is like, well, that's why we've gone to the police thing.
Mhm.
We're using it as the cudgel because the stats are just like so obvious of what the problem is, and it's a really hard problem, and not solving that problem, or at least acknowledging that there's issues within certain communities, within the family and within the culture that is
Mhm.
killing people, and simply blaming police or blaming some white person that has no touch to it whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's only going to kill more of those people. It's going to hurt more of those folks in those communities.
Yeah.
And it's just, and the reason, going back to teachers being lazy, it's just being lazy. It's an easy out, and is kicking the ball down the road so you don't have to actually confront those truths that go against the narrative.
Yeah, it's easier to like virtue signal than to maybe put a little bit more thought into something and realize the complexities of life.
Well, you actually have
It
to
is odd.
explain yourself. You have to actually like present proof and facts and or statistics. Like
Mhm.
whenever
Yeah.
I've gotten into like arguments with like with my friends over things, it was always me, okay, presenting, okay, this is this. I was always the one answering the questions.
Mhm.
but they're in a place where they don't have to answer anything because they're so casual. They're so like just smothered by the media and by everybody else saying, "Oh no, otherwise." It's
Mhm.
like, so like, how can how can you win? It's like one question turns into two questions, to four questions, and even if you answer them, it's just like never ending. They're like left unsatisfied.
Yeah, I've had many conversations kind of go like that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and the media and the education system, they rest on their laurels of being the experts, and then they're also their own fact checkers, like, right?
Mhm.
So like Media Matters is the is the
Yeah.
fact checker for NBC, and they're both subsidiaries of each other, but it's this weird circle jerk of opinions of like it's like trying to argue religion with
Yeah.
somebody, and it's just not going to go anywhere because it's all based in an ideal, like it's based in your own self in a weird way. Like, if this is wrong, then everything I believe in is going to crumble, and I don't know what to do with myself if if something's not different. As opposed to conservatives are always arguing with each other. There's always, and I think that's why you see the cultural shift happening so rapidly,
Mhm.
because we're so used to debating with each other and debating policy and totally fine with like, okay, you think this subject, but I think this subject. I'm willing to vote for this person because they're kind of in the middle, and I'll get most of what I want off a couple policies that I'm thinking of.
Mhm.
And I think that's why Trump kind of blew up when he did, is because he's just so out of there, and he's like, who knows what he's going to do? At least it's not, it's not a politician, it's not a Bush, it's not a Clinton, and let's see where this rolls.
Mhm.
I think
I
that's
think
why.
he reached out to like a lot of like I'm from California, but I think he reached out to like middle America. Like he spoke to
Mhm.
them. I didn't vote for him for like 2016, but um I noticed that like right away, like into like after like a year of him being president, like in doing my own research, I'm like, oh, okay, I understand now. And
Yeah.
because looking back too, I remember when I was doing conventions like throughout the country, and when if you're from California or when you're from New York or you're from one of these liberal cities, they
Mhm.
tend to be very, very liberal. So you only are exposed to that sort of like liberal mentality. So you don't know what it's like elsewhere. But
Mhm.
like if you actually drive around the United States, it's a lot more conservative, more like liberal, more libertarian, more sort of like in the middle. There's the farmers, all these like the workers, the people that created this country.
Yeah.
Those are the people that were forgotten, and those are the people that Trump focused on. And I'm like, I know you guys have been forgotten. I'm not gonna. I haven't forgotten about you guys, and that's the reason why he won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. People in LA think that like LA is like representative of the rest of the world, and they don't
Exactly. And that's why the
realize.
electoral
Seattle too.
college exists.
Yeah.
If you drive
Well,
throughout the United States, you're gonna see like in all these rural areas, you're gonna see like flags everywhere. You're gonna see
Mhm.
just a lot of patriotism still exists, but you're not
yeah.
gonna see it if you're right there, like in the middle of the city in this just I don't know, this echo chamber of just repugnant
Yeah.
crap.
Well, and like in Seattle's a great example of that. Like they are so up their own ass of how things work,
Mhm.
and they're they are the typical a frog boiling in the pot. They don't notice how shitty things have gotten. In the I've been there 10 years now, and for the majority of the time I was there, that Seattle is a pristine, clean, beautiful city. But if you go there now, it's like something out of a Mad Max episode. Like it's crazy. There's just trash everywhere. The violence has gone up 300 fucking percent. There's a murder a night. It's like crazy there.
Mhm.
And they're just now like the people in my office are just now kind of noticing, hey, seems like it's kind of getting bad. Like
Yeah.
we can go in our office right now, but no one's going in there because it's fucking dangerous as shit. And like there's protests, and if you're wearing the wrong shirt or if you look at the wrong group wearing all black, they will beat the shit out of you. Like
Yeah.
it is insane. And like even your day-to-day liberals starting to kind of notice, don't know if they're going to do anything. They're great at not doing anything, but that place is majority white. Seattle is the whitest place I've ever lived in my life, and I'm from Yakima, And what you're talking about is this blue collar flags everywhere, but it's way more multicultural than Seattle is. And like the only time like people from Seattle see a Hispanic person is when they're mowing their lawn, and it's really weird and gross. Like there's something weird about it. I mean, just it's like they're almost conditioned. The part where you guys touched on where they actually believe it, where they believe in what they're talking about, it's because of when they see somebody of a minority status, they're either on the street doing drugs or mowing their lawn.
Yeah.
They don't see the business owner like, oh, selling the tamales at the really nice place I just got tamales at, a business owner working their ass off and just wants the government stop taxing them into oblivion, just leave me alone. And they got a flag up. You know, got an American flag. They also got a Mexican flag up too. That's great. No one cares. No one cares.
I think that what's missing in the college experience is actual real experience with people, like out there in the real world, making things, working with their hands, or just like working in a factory or working somewhere with other people. And that's what's missing, because otherwise you're just being indoctrinated by the professors. Who else are you looking up to? You're just looking up
especially in the design community, especially in the art community. A lot of teachers do not do this for a living. It's the people, like when I went to school, I was already making a living at a high school. I was, well, not a living out of high school, but I had clients. I'd made money doing it. And then you raise your hands like, well, that's not how you get a client. Well, that's not, you know, it's the jump between what they're teaching in the schools and how to get a job and how to keep a job and how to be successful in a job is light years difference.
Do you guys think, like, just because earlier today I was watching a Simpsons episode of when Homer joins a cult. I don't know if you guys seen that one.
Yeah.
And is it the Illuminati or which one?
It's like the leader or something. I forget the name of the cult. It's like a made up cult. But I was thinking about it as I was watching it, and like, do you guys think like the environment of college is like weirdly enough like the perfect kind of cult community kind of thing? Like, you're a kid that's away from home, you're trying to make friends, you want to be liked, so you're just surrounded by this very one narrow viewpoint. Like, how is that not like the perfect little environment for that?
Yeah, and like it pulls you away from your family, just like a cult. Like the whole idea when you get into a cult, they pull you away from your family, they alienate you from your friends, and then they condition you. Like that's like the three pillars of how to get you started into a cult, and that's college.
Yeah,
it's like the village. Like like if the village was like a college, you just get pulled into the village, and you think that's all the only thing that exists like all around. So that's what you know. So you forget what it's like out on the outside. So because a lot of these students are just so out of touch. They have like no empathy. They think they're being righteous and they're being good, but it's it's just like a very narrow-minded perspective.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times like I would like just overhear people just, you know, talk out of their ass, and they would think that they sounded so like self-righteous, but like they would actually say like some of the most horrible shit like I've ever heard.
Exactly. Yeah. Pseudo
I had a professor,
fake intellects.
I made the comment that people are tribal by nature, because we're talking. Oh, I can't remember what we were talking about. And he goes, well, where'd you hear that? He was talking about some book. He goes, well, that sounds racist. You better go burn that book. I go, wow, that went really well in the past. Like everyone understood like what he was saying.
Yeah.
You want me to burn a book? Okay. And you're socialist, right? Okay. Are you from Germany? No? Okay. I don't know. That's just phenomenal.
Yeah, I had a teacher legitly say there was some like weird Marxist kid in the front of the class, and he was trying to like sell Marxism or whatever. And the teacher, the kid brought up Cuba, and the teacher just said like something along the lines of like, oh, Cuba, everyone knows Cuba is actually a success story in communism or something like that.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have the heart to like raise my hand and like, no. But the kids out there, they're really hardly getting the other side of anything over there. And like the professors, like I think they get too comfortable in not having like their views checked. and it just builds this environment where like any other viewpoint doesn't really necessarily feel as welcome as I think
and
they
this
are.
and general ed is so pathetic nowadays. Like high school, you can literally not do shit and get through high school just fine. And then those kids are like, okay, well, it's time to go to college now, and they're going to college now, and they literally know nothing. And it's like the kids that are going to school, and like right now I'm in a position to actually hire these people that are coming out of college. And holy shit, it's so hard to get somebody that can functionally put a sentence together or can communicate or knows anything about what they're doing in the field. You almost got to get somebody that didn't go to school to get somebody that's worth a crap. It's amazing. And like these kids go to school with no really education, and then they're just playing college student. And what is everyone else doing? Okay, I'll do this. Oh, we're protest. That's what college kids do. We protest. And half the fucking time they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They're just spewing these like talking points, and to get these people stuck into that realm, they get it more emotional and froth people up to emotional rage. And they're just what you see today is like, but there's no substance there. It's inept. There's no history. They don't know their history.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. Like, there'd be a kid that's like obviously into activism, and I would just generally just curious as to why they thought what they thought, and maybe like 2 questions in, they would just kind of fold and like have no idea what the hell to say. Just asking for specifics, like that's the big thing that'll just break them. Just give me an example of what you're talking about, and everything's like, it's in the ether, the air, man. It's, I don't know, man, but it's like, you're making
They
big
always
claims.
like dig at the gray area. It's like, oh no, like whatever, whatever. It's like the thing, but it's too complex. It depends.
Yeah.
Right.
They never give you like a straight answer. Like they can never stand on their both legs. It's always like in the gray area. Never
and it's easier to sound smart in a mob, right? So if you notice this, they'll always target one person. There's a conversation going on, and someone's laying down facts and talking to these people. And as soon as one starts to fucking fall and crumble, some other shrieking harpy comes out of the woodworks and starts yelling at them about something else, changing the subject. Now you got a new thing, you're going this way. And as soon as that pillar crumbles, there's some other asshole hits you in the head with a bike lock. Like it's like it's just that's the only time they're good at what they do, is because they're in this mob of people that think like them. But if you get them at the dinner table, they get mad, shut down, and leave, and they just pull out the old reliable, you're a thisophobe, and then the conversation's over, because that's when I get pissed off. Like, fuck you.
Yeah, and also I noticed too. I think it also kind of goes hand in hand with the indoctrination thing. But I noticed when I was there, because I went to college like when I was in my late 20s, and I just noticed that the kids there was like this eagerness to like rush to grow up, and I think they think that like just jumping into like some kind of activism like sort of like replaces that, I guess, in a weird way.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's not enough to grow as to grow your opinion. I'm just gonna be an activist because that's like so adult and
intellectual.
Yeah. I mean, did you guys ever like experience any of that or just notice that?
Yeah, well, now that you're saying it, for sure. Like, I feel like kids are a little bit more. I'm more childish than my dad. My dad would never collect toys. I collect toys, and then we adopted my wife's little brother, and he was more childish than me. And but then he got really into the activism to kind of replace a lack of intellectual forethought and the things that he's talking about, because he would ask me questions. We were completely polar opposite on the way we thought about things. But I noticed the more school he got, the more quick to a emotional reaction things would happen, because those talking points that you would get at his school, I already knew, because I steeped myself with this stuff. Like I'm such a nerd and a dork when it comes to the stuff that I talk about. I go out and thrift shop like around Seattle in particular places I go to during when yard sales and those types of things were a thing, I'd go out and look through the old newspapers, and I have all these old guys. I have all these socialist propaganda documents of stuff that they would collect. And it was all like, if you go back far enough into the 60s and all the way up into the 80s, the liberalism and the socialism was also backed up by stuff within the Constitution. So they were really pointing back at the Constitution, and they're well educated about the founding of the country. And I would argue misusing some of the things about the aspects of how we build our country to push their narrative, but at least that is a more intellectual strategy than what's going on today. It's not coming back with like, well, back in, the foundation of the early papers, and this note that Jefferson wrote, that he said this one byline, this is why this point makes sense. And there's none of that anymore. It's all, the whole system's garbage, and if you're this skin tone, you think this, which is so reductive and a pointless argument that you can't argue. Is like, okay, well, I guess you're just a dickhead, I guess. I don't know. And you want to hurt me because of my skin tone. No, it seems like we were going backwards somewhere. It's just sad. And there's a lot of folks that don't think that, but I don't see them in the younger generation. But that's, I'm a little older. I'm almost 4. I'm going to be 40 this summer. So I'm a little pulled away from current kids. Only see it when people marching around the street, but you're only hearing from the vocal folks.
Yeah.
So who knows what's really happening under in the depths of that. So it's scary, but it's all, I do have hope. There's still a lot more people that you talk one-to-one and they're like, that seems stupid. I don't segregation wasn't good, I'm pretty sure.
Do you have hope for just colleges, or just hope for the future, or just for people in general? Because I'm not sure about colleges.
I don't have hope for the institution for colleges. I do have hope, given that they allow us, that there's more options to school. Like when I was, I don't know if I got into this, but I went to Central for a little bit, and I left Central to start with a professor that was there to start a liberal arts program. And I was the head of the AIGA, and we started this early phase of the design program. And in my little classes that I would teach, I was like, okay, well, you have to get a job. You have to get a paying job to pass this course. So the logo, if your aunt pays you for do a project, but I got to see you write a brief and do these things and figure stuff out. Some kids would drop it right then and there if they knew that there was a responsibility outside of someone's ringing my doorbell. Okay. If they had any kind of that was like too much for some folks that would drop the class, but the people that stuck there for that class, for that challenge, did really well, and they succeeded later on in their careers. So I mean, I think there's hope for kids if they can shuck and devalue the education system, just like the media has been devalued lately. I think that's a good thing for folks. If more people are challenging and not believing their own media, and educating themselves, whether they're left or right, that's more healthy than resting on their laurels and listening to Ted Koppel tell you what to think every night. And I think that's what's happening with the education system as well. I think there's less, the fact that school is so goddamn expensive, and there's zero value. Like I saw when I graduated and I went to, like, as soon as I got a job, it's like, and I'm using nothing I ever learned in school ever. It's like a fancy talking point. Like there's like fancy talking points at dinner, at a to talk to your friends about art history, but I don't use it ever.
Yeah.
I could have done this immediately out of high school and had a house by now, or had another car by now. Like those types of, like, I won't tell anyone going into school right now that there's so much information out there. If you're motivated, you can do it. If you do these steps, you don't need to go to school. And I've seen more and more designers actually doing that. So yeah, there is hope that if we can shuck the school system and just, devalue it, there's going to always be a need for school in college if you're a doctor or some shit. But
yeah.
designers, maybe not. Just
Yeah.
YouTube's great, guys.
Yeah, I think like the future is more just going through workshops and shit like that. I'm not sure about colleges
And
in general.
mentorships. I'd rather take on 3 mentorships
Hmm.
than see people go through school. And I think that's, if we could, like, internships not so much, but mentorships within the design community, I think is really good. And maybe that's something that, folks like us that are anti the system, and if anything is a system, it's the school system, like
Hmm.
it's institution.
Hmm.
It's, you don't want to be institutionalized. Go make some money, go be successful.
Yeah.
You can do it nowadays. There's so much information out there, so many courses. You could learn UX design without ever touching school. And if you have clients under your belt, you can do it. So,
Yeah. Did you ever like experience like anything like I guess like any mandatory like Marxist teachings or communist teachings like when you were in school? Because there was a couple that I experienced some of that when I was in school, like some mandatory readings. Like I think one of the assignments we had to read like the last page of the Communist Manifesto for an assignment that had nothing to do with that.
yeah, it was you're learning about agriculture or something like that, so you had to read the Communist Manifesto. Yeah, I mean, I think they call that general ed.
Yeah.
I mean, my kids are getting it. Like my kids in school right now, like my daughter comes up, she's in like 4th grade, and she goes, hey, I go, what are you learning in school today? It's like, oh, learn about World War II. Well, what did you learn about World War II? Oh, we put the Japanese internment camps. That's
Simple as that, right?
That's World War II. Is that what we're talking about? Okay. And then like the next week, we're just like Western expansionism thing. Oh, what'd you learn about there? Trail of Tears. Oh, okay. That's it. Like there's like 400 years of history there.
Mhm.
Yes. And but it goes back exactly how they teach communism. Oh, well, that's the exception. We just haven't done it right yet. And when it comes to American history, we only focus on the negative points and really highlight it with the really negative highlighter. But man, America has gone through some terrible times, but a lot of great things has happened.
Yeah.
Like we were the fastest to break that system, and we did a lot. And we should be highlighting those good points to do better there.
Yeah, and my entire time I was in college, I literally don't remember any time where like America was generally like portrayed positively. Like it was always very like snickery, like, oh yeah, but we had slaves back in the day, blah blah blah. It
Yeah.
like
Well, if you
yeah.
want to learn the crap, this is a really good homework assignment talking about school. I was just curious, like what Google wanted to tell me about who the most racist nations were, because there's a lot of talk about that. Oh, America's so racist. Okay, well, I wonder there's got to be some resource out there that's ranked all of the like best countries to do with race, and at least I wonder what that is. You look it up. It's Sweden, Iceland, like white. Brazil was like, I think 10th on that list. Brazil had way more slaves than us.
Yeah,
Like
I think I
most
had
of the
like
slave
90.
trade was going to Brazil.
Yeah, I think like 96% of the slave trade went to Brazil.
Yeah,
something like that.
Income equality is just off the charts down there. Like it's
Yeah.
insane. Versus here, it's a little bit more flat. But it's like, oh, okay. It's scary to see how pervasive this fucking shit is. And if you're not curious at all or have no knowledge of anything, that will be your default thought. But as soon as you are betrayed, then you start looking into it more. And colleges betray all the time, and they lie constantly. They have to get that ideology out there. So the only hope that I have is if they fuck up just enough that's so obvious that it becomes like the American Pravda, where no one believes it anyway. Like what the communist Pravdas, like the news network in Russia during when the Iron Curtain was up, and no one, like it's their news. They have the Pravda was their certain newspaper, and the way that they pushed news out. No one believed it. We knew it was fucking fake and bullshit.
Yeah.
Like Bob, it's Baghdad Bob telling you there's no missiles going by, where the shit's blowing up in the background. Yeah. Well, as soon as you lied to me once, it's human nature to never fucking trust you again.
Mhm.
And the more they do that, the more it's going to break and fall and crumble. So it's human. The only hope I have is human nature succeeding despite all the shittiness that they're going to shove down our throat. And it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. But, you know, people, even the dumbest of us are smarter than what they think.
Yeah, because one of the classes I did that was a mandatory class to graduate was like a postmodernism class. And it was literally one of those classes that you just kind of show up and you pass with an A kind of shit. But I was like, I might as well just read some of this shit. And I would read some of the postmodernism nonsense. And even back then I was like, this is just wrong and stupid. And why am I being taught this nonsense? And like now I see what's going on and I'm like, oh, okay. I see why it was pushed.
Well, you know, things are going to be pushed down your throat. I mean, history is written by its successors, and they really took that to heart, and they took over the culture. So they're writing the history right now.
Yeah. I guess it'd be a good idea to, like, I guess if we can sort of explain what Marxism and postmodernism kind of is, or else people are just going to watch this and think we're just, you know, using crazy talk or whatever. I don't know if you guys want to start first and like explaining what like Marxism is, I guess, or the best you can, I guess.
Well, I mean, Karl Marx and what he explained, how his explanation of the cultural aspect of how communist Russia was supposed to work is basically, man, I'm gonna struggle here. Shit, you got me. It's cultural Marxism. It's in a nutshell, it's devaluing the individual into for the collective, right? So the individual rights is not a thing in cultural Marxism. Personal capital is not a thing in cultural Marxism, and you're supposed to be working for the state and the betterment of the overall culture. So basically, you know, a sack of meat working for this for this larger dog. Got a dog over here want to play, but yeah, essentially that's basically what it was. It's reducing individual rights for the collective good, and if you were going to distill it down to one sentence, that's probably what it'd be.
I guess for me, from the best I kind of picked it up was something along the lines of sort of like viewing society in terms of like power classes, of hierarchies of power, of like there's an oppressed group and an oppressor, and you just viewing every single, using that lens through sort of define society. So that's what critical Marxism kind of is it's breaking everything down as like there's a bad man who's oppressing this group, and that's why it's so divisive. And I guess postmodernism kind of is used to sort of like explain who the bad man is. Do you guys know what postmodernism is? Because I took the class, so I could explain it a little bit, but I don't know if you guys
go
can.
for it, man.
From the best I can kind of, because I also listen to I don't know if you guys know who like Gad Zad is. Do you guys know that?
No.
Yeah, he's like
no, never heard of.
He's I think he's like a psychologist, but he's been on a Rogan a few times. I would definitely love to have him on the show if I could. But anyways, postmodernism. Sorry.
Oh no, someone said glad sad.
I spelled it wrong.
Oh, sorry.
But the best I can kind of explain it, it's like the idea of like truth being somewhat relative. Like truth is in the eye of the beholder. So that's why when you
kind of like subjective, right?
Yeah. So that's why when
everything's subjective.
Yeah, that's why when you get into arguments with people about anything, it's very like they can never explain anything specifically. It's everything's sort of vague because they're kind of using that kind of my truth is different from your truth, man, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's why I really suggest people stay away from that, because it's a never-ending battle. You're not going to win on that.
Well, we see it happening now. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, yes. So you're ringing bells now. So the cultural Marxism is to get away from like classical history and the ways things are taught, is to have that self-taught truth to
Mhm.
easily manipulate the masses. Is that what you're touching on, or?
Kinda like I mean it's definitely something I like to like learn more because it's so
Yeah.
bonkers.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I
Um,
mean, like the postmodern movement, like you can look at, like you can see it in art history, for
Mhm.
example. Like postmodernism was the end of the technical class, the really fine painters doing these really fancy ass, you know, perspective. There's rules and cultures
Mhm.
behind what makes the artwork work. Like the
Mhm.
Roman culture had their style and the painterly style, and then you had all these like uh postmodernists coming out and just doing scribbly paints and putting a urinal up, like the Dada movement is part of the
Yeah.
postmodern. So it's shucking the rules and the culture of whatever they're talking about to push some sort of new modernist thing,
Mhm.
to push another narrative. And
Yeah.
that's where a lot of the postmodernism movement in the art world, like when you start seeing expressionism leading into Dada,
Mhm.
that would, and it's just after Dada happened, art was dead, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that sort of like the postmodernism crap, I think it's like developed like this kind of attitude that I've noticed with like a lot of like the college kids I went to school with. Like they had like this sort of like attitude of being like somewhat disrespectful to tradition and the old.
Yeah.
And that's why like I've been like looking into postmodernism because I think a lot of that attitude sort of stems from that behavior or that way of thinking. Um, it's like this excuse to like, be weird and out there, but there's no foundation built on that. And I don't know.
uh, I
And it's
think
so
all those.
interesting.
I think it's a way to enforce Marxism as well.
Mhm.
And if we go back to defining Marxism, what I was thinking right now, in
Mhm.
the simplest way I can think of, is controlling or nationalizing the means of production and
Mhm.
controlling it by the government, and not being able to own property,
Mhm.
not be able to own your own business, and just everybody being equal and being slaves to the government
Mhm.
in the easiest form. And I think all those things, Marxism, communism, fascism is another way to enforce Marxism and communism.
Mhm.
And I think postmodernism is the same thing as just a way of enforcing their ideas, no matter what factual evidence you show that it, or empirical evidence that you have, that it has not historically ever worked. It doesn't matter if you show all the evidence. If you introduce modernism, it's just going to take away the fire away from the facts that you can bring to the table. I think that's just a way of enforcing what we're talking
Yeah.
Yeah,
about, the whole Marxist movement.
Yeah, I think
I agree with that.
Gadzad, even mentioned like if postmodernism goes into science, then like us as a society we're pretty much done.
Well, I think it's already got to that point, because it's funny how people like to point out the dogma in religion, but when it comes to like science, it's like, oh yeah, the scientists are always right, never wrong, never question the science. It's like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? Science is always going to be changing. Like over
Yeah.
time, it's always going to be changing. Like you're always testing it, testing to see if it works or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's unscientific to
It's
not
never going to
question
be
science.
settled. Yeah.
Science.
Yeah. Like that
Science
quote.
is
That's a
not
good one.
religion. I think that's what's happening. I don't know if you guys have ever read anything from Michael Crichton. I think that's
I heard he's pretty trippy, but I've never read
yeah.
anything.
That guy, he's like one of the guys that actually opened up my eyes a little bit, because he touches about that, about how environmentalism has become like a religion, and it shouldn't be a
Mhm.
religion,
Yeah.
because everything should be questioned. You can't just like follow blindly everything. You should always be able to test it.
Mhm.
Yep.
And a lot of the books that he wrote are fiction, but he based it off of actual research. So when he wrote this one book back in, I don't know when he wrote, I'm trying to remember when he wrote, I think early 2000s, he
Mhm.
wrote a book on global warming, which was very controversial.
Like a fiction
because
book or
it was called State of Fear,
is
but
it
it was about
fiction
global
or
warming.
okay.
It's fiction.
Okay.
It was fiction. But the thing about I don't know, like if, because I've read a lot of Michael Crichton, and the thing about
Mhm.
Michael Crichton that I love is that even though he's writing in fiction, he's always doing a lot of research. So everything that he reads is nonfiction to come up with his books that are fiction. So in the book that he wrote, he actually wanted to write about a national disaster, like a disaster like all over the world. So he thought that global warming would be like a good idea to come up to write about. So he started doing research on global warming and how this could actually happen, how we can encounter this disaster, and he could write like a novel on that. But based on the research that he did, he couldn't come up or conclusively come to the point where, okay, global warming is an actual threat to the world. So he's like, well, he wrote it, but he actually exposed it for what it is. It's just fake science. It's pseudoscience. It's not real science.
You guys ever heard of I think his name is Patrick Moore? Have you ever heard of him?
I have heard of him.
Yeah. You know, he's some guy I think he founded Greenpeace in Canada, I believe. And just like what you're talking about, like he kind of started witnessing like the politicization of the environmentalists, and he just backed out. And I've been following him for a while. He's pretty awesome, but he talked exactly about this kind of stuff.
Really smart.
He's pretty awesome. I like that guy.
Yeah, he is. He's on the our radio, like our local talk radios.
Oh, really?
Every once he's a guest all the time out here.
Oh, nice. Does he live out there or just?
I don't know, but I've heard, that's how I know him. He was on some show, I don't know, in Seattle.
Yeah, I've seen him on Fox News and stuff like that, and I like his story, because I think when I first learned about him, that's what made me kind of I guess be a little bit skeptical on like just activism in general. Like how it could kind of come from good intentions and then just get sort of corrupt through just slimy donors. And that's why
and this is why the education system doesn't teach people to educate themselves. They tell them what to think, because once that lie is exposed or the crack is happening, everything crumbles and you start kind of looking into stuff. And if you doubt your leaders, basically they're the experts, then they don't have any power.
Yeah. Like, it's another subject, I guess, regarding like colleges in general. Do you guys know about like the whole safe spaces bullshit? Like, do you know about that?
Yeah.
You guys want to explain that to the people listening, and if they have no idea?
So a safe place is a fictional area, and they had this up, and they had these places in Chaz, and it's evolved. It's evolved to something different than when I was in school. Safe places were just places where if you're queer or you're native, and they had a little place where you could just sit there and hang out, and it's totally okay to be that. Like if it wasn't okay to be that or think this anywhere else on campus. But on Chaz, it was so hilarious because they had they segregated everybody into these like little camps. So like so if you're a trans, black, queer person with one eye and a peg leg, you had one room, and then like it was all these like different spots. And it was like one spot had like one or two people in it, and the other one had a whole bunch of people in it, and they got mad at each other because one had only a few, and it was just they just stopped it, and they devolved, and it was just this crazy goalpost moving thing where these safe places were almost, they were un-PC inside their perpetual PC motion thing that they had going on there. It's just they're never happy. So it's a place for an unhappy person that feels shitty about who they are to pretend for 3 seconds that they are totally normal, but as soon as they realize that there's another spot over there with more people, then it breaks down and it doesn't work.
In my school they had a safe space, and it was just like a room to go in with like I think they had like like handballs and shit like that, and puzzles and coloring books, like for actual students, like adult students, to go just if they were feeling overwhelmed with anything. So that can literally be like, if I'm having a debate with them, they could just go, and then they just go into their safe space and and color or something like that.
But what it really is, it's not for them. It's for you. You're not allowed to go in there. And if you go in there, they can all yell at you and they get a adrenaline hit of telling you what to do. They had this at the Fort Lewis College, and it was a room for natives only.
Mhm.
I'm like, I don't like that. That seems really racial. So I was like, fuck that. I'm camping out right here, going in there. And they just, and it's always women. And they get up and like yell at you and scream at you and physically lay hands on you. And what I realized there is like, oh, this is not for you, or it's not a safe place for you. It's just an unsafe place for me where you can act up a fool. That's what it really is. A lot of their ideology is like that, where it's not necessarily about me or like even the whole transgender thing, where you're supposed to tell somebody that transitioned from one thing to the other, and if you slip up, they can snap on you, especially if you're on the political side. I've noticed it gets worse if they know you're conservative, but if their liberal friend slips and misgenders them, not that bad, but only if they're really getting into it. So I don't know. It's that's why I've noticed these things are designed for us, not for them.
Do you think the people that like, I don't know, like enable this kind of stuff, do you think they realize that what they're doing is actually like more than anything, just kind of weakening like the students? Do you think they have any idea that they're doing that, or
don't think they care?
I think they're doing it on purpose. It's counterproductive. Like it just doesn't make any sense. They want to be treated the same or equally, but then they're putting themselves in a situation where we're going to treat them differently because they're putting themselves in a situation where we have to treat them differently.
Yeah.
Like it's just, why are you separating yourself from us? If you want to be among us, just be among us. You don't have to like act differently. Like that's why there's a constitution. Like if you want to believe what you want to believe, that you're okay with that, but it doesn't matter what it is that you believe. No one's going to be granted like new privileges just because you think differently. It just doesn't make any sense. You can't write in, okay, I'm trans, so this is how you're going to treat me. You can't make up your own rules. And I think that's what's happening, is that they want to have a special treatment when we're not getting that treatment. It's like everybody needs to be treated the same way. That's why we have the Constitution. You have the right free speech, you have the right to assemble, you have the right to protest peacefully, you have the Second Amendment, you have all these amendments for a reason, to protect the individual. But then once you start saying that you need like these special treatment, I'm like, well, I don't understand. Like we're all being treated equally already.
Right. Well, the thing about being treated equal is not saying that there's not differences, or there's not inequalities, or there's not, some people don't like this person, or like, that's not what those rights mean. It's getting government out of your way, and where they don't do the people that they say they're trying to help any favors by giving them these extra privileges. All they're doing is making me stronger and them weaker, like because they're not. I mean, someone that has this this mindset is not going to outwork me or do better than me without synthetic help, right? So you can only go into this large corporation that like, oh, we're pro-trans, but soon as they have all their social check marks kicked off, so they don't get any backlash from the mob, they're just, they're not going to be successful because of their identity. They're going to be successful if they work hard. And if I'm in that same organization and I'm not being synthetically pushed down in that organization, I'm going to rise ahead of them because they're so focused on their inequalities versus just fucking getting the job done. You know what I'm saying? So all that does is hurt them and make me stronger, despite
well, that's what they want. They want like a dependency of government, because government doesn't really bring anything to the table of value. They don't make anything. I mean, they print out money, but it's all like monopoly money. It's not real. It's all from the Federal Reserve. It's all fake money. It's like making everybody else who actually works and get things done those are the people who suffer the consequence, because then they take that money, like, okay, tax the money and then give it to these people who are in like in the LGBT community, because they need their safe space. They need these little special room with lattes and coffee machines and their
Yeah.
safe space and their teacher and their
And yoga
puppy.
mats.
They need
Yeah.
puppies because they're stressed out, and they need like padding
Yeah.
all over the walls. So we're
The
paying for
lie-
that too.
The lie that they believe in is that those teachers or that company cares about them. The truth is they don't give a fucking shit about them.
Mhm.
Just leave me alone. Just like everybody else,
Yeah.
right? So these people with the overly dyed hair that's will not stop talking about their skin color, they think those professors should care about them. And I don't know if it's coming from a place where their parents didn't care about them, or they have some sort of problem in their lives that they're trying to fill in with having everyone else in the world care about who they are or their identity or whatever the hell that might be.
Mhm.
But the truth is, no one gives a shit about you more than you do. You care about yourself. And if you don't figure that out early, you're going to be hurting for the rest of your life. Like that's what they don't teach you in school.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah, there was never like an activist person at school that like didn't seem like they were like totally miserable. You know what I mean? I never seen a
Right.
happy one.
well, just, you don't see the protests in Seattle. There's still protests every fucking night.
Yeah.
Every night. Like, well, okay, you got your president. What do you want? Oh, you don't like him because of this or that. Like, it's just the goalpost, just like their ideology, is always moving, always advancing, and it often contradicts each other. Like 2008, 2010, 2016, the left was anti big pharma. Today they're full for it. They're singing songs on TikTok about Pfizer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Have you seen those douchey videos of people like celebrating the vaccine and all that stuff? Like, have you seen any of those?
Yeah. Tons.
Yeah, they have like parodies and satire
Yeah.
like videos. Yeah, I've seen like the music videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one of they do like a parody of the Hocus Pocus song, like I put a spell on you, but it's like I put a mask on you or some shit like that. But it's
Oh God, kill me now.
it's just the douchiest thing I've ever seen.
Well, they are giving me some really. I love cringe porn, so this is
Yeah.
like perfect for me. Like, I love that stuff.
Yeah, I love watching bad movies and stuff like that. So it's sort of similar, I guess you can say.
It does scratch
Yeah.
that itch. Hey, listen, guys, I gotta go have a dinner with the rest of my family there.
All right, no problem, man. Hey, thanks for joining in.
I
Man.
really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
It was a blast. Let's do it again.
All right, you're invited anytime, dude. All right, man.
Yeah, it was nice meeting you, Derek.
Absolutely. It was nice meeting you too.
All right.
Awesome.
All right, man. Have a good one.
All right. See you guys later.
Later.
I see you.
Yeah.
That was a long session. Yeah, how long have we been going at it?
I'm still recording. I guess let's just have some final thoughts, because I think
thoughts too.
I think we can definitely do more episodes just based on college, because it's like I have so many more notes that I didn't even touch on. But I guess if the other two are around, we can do another episode.
Yeah, I was actually, because I didn't really do any research too much. Like I
Mhm.
tried to write some stuff down, but I was hoping that they would show up so I could just kind of play off
Yeah.
of their angles. But since they weren't here, so
Mhm.
that's why I tried to let Derek speak as much as possible. And it's also really hot over here.
Yeah.
my air conditioning, I have to keep turning it off so I can hear.
Yeah. All right. I guess you want to start with the final thought on college or anything.
Okay, so my final thought on college, to all the people out there, maybe like in high school, that are thinking about going to college, especially if you're thinking about going to art school, just like Derek said, and I think Mr. Phil or Senor Phil also agreed, is that there's also so many resources out there that you can look up. I think if you're unsure about what resources to consult, find somebody that you look up to, an artist that you think is somebody that you want to become, somebody that a style that you want to maybe emulate, and ask them like, what resources can I look into? Where can I take classes? Are there any workshops that I can go to? I think in art in general, I think if you just take like a lot of these life drawing classes out in community colleges, I think that would help. I wish I would have done more of that back in the back in the
Yeah.
day. A lot of the experience that I've got that has paid off for me has been direct experience working and actually doing artwork live.
Hmm.
And I suggest whatever it is that you want to get into, is that you actually go out there and actually do it,
Hmm.
either through an internship, but just have that hands-on experience, because that's going to be completely different than just listening to somebody or reading a book, or even following like a video. It's good to follow videos and tutorials online, but in the end, like, you have to directly work with people as well. So it's like,
Hmm.
if you ever can get a job too, even like while you're in school, like in customer service, you're gonna have to deal with people all of your life. So if you know how to deal with people,
Hmm.
I think that's very crucial in being able to make money doing art, because when it comes down to it, you if you want to do art, you have to make money somehow. And just remember, the government doesn't give you anything. They only take away, and they print out
Hmm.
monopoly money. So if you want to see any success in your life, you have to do it yourself. And
Yeah,
those are my final thoughts.
those are very good. I guess just for me, I'll just keep it simple. I'm not going to tell you to go to college or not to. It's ultimately going to be your decision. But if I would strongly suggest, don't go in it because you want to go into activism. That is a complete waste of time. Uh, just go into another field, learn some trade. If you want to go into art, just focus on the art. Don't try to, don't think that you're going to like change the world through, finger painting or some shit like that. Uh, so yeah, that'll be my my final thought on this. Thank you for watching. This is the Critical Introverts show. We'll be back next week with another topic to discuss on, hopefully different artists. All right.